Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The moon hung low over the village of Ardent, its soft glow casting long shadows across the narrow cobbled streets. The night was still, the air heavy with the scent of pine and the distant hum of the forest. Aidan stood by his window, staring up at the heavens, where the stars shimmered like distant jewels scattered carelessly across the black velvet sky. He had always been drawn to them, ever since he was a boy. His father used to tell him tales of the Song of the Stars, an ancient melody said to hold the power to awaken the star spirits, celestial beings that granted immeasurable wisdom to those worthy enough to hear their call. But that was just a story, Aidan reminded himself, a myth spun by the old bards to keep the flame of wonder alive in the hearts of dreamers. Yet, deep within him, there was a small flicker of hope that refused to die. Tonight, that flicker felt like a roaring fire, for in his dreams, he had heard it, the melody of the stars. It was faint at first, just a few notes carried on the wind, but as the dream deepened, the song grew clearer, pulling him toward something vast and ancient, far beyond the reach of his understanding. The tune echoed in his mind even now, haunting and beautiful, as if it had been crafted by the cosmos themselves. Aidan had woken with a certainty he couldn't shake. The song was real, and it had chosen him. I must follow it, he whispered to himself, the weight of the decision pressing down on him like a heavy cloak. His heart raced at the thought of leaving Ardent, the only home he'd ever known, but he knew there was no turning back now. The stars were calling that he packed his belongings quickly, a few scraps of bread, a flask of water, and a small dagger his father had given him when he was a boy. He hesitated as his hand brushed the old lute leaning against the wall, the instrument worn from years of use. It had been his mother's before she passed, and it was the only thing he had left of her. With a sigh, he slung the lute over his shoulder. Music would be his guide on this journey, and if the Song of the Stars was real, he would need its help. The night was cold as Aidan stepped out into the empty streets, the village sleeping peacefully behind him. He cast one last glance at the small cottage that had been his home for so many years, a pang of sorrow tugging at his heart. But there was no time for regret. The stars were calling, and he had to answer. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Aidan felt a strange sense of purpose settle over him as he made his way through the darkened forest. The melody of the stars hummed softly in his mind, guiding his steps. It led him deeper into the woods, where the trees grew tall and twisted, their branches reaching toward the sky like skeletal fingers. After hours of walking, Aidan came upon a clearing bathed in moonlight, and there, standing at the edge of the trees, was a woman. She was dressed in a cloak of deep indigo, the color of the night sky, and her silver hair shimmered like stardust in the light. Her eyes, piercing and bright, locked onto his. "You heard it, didn't you?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with knowing. Aidan's breath caught in his throat. "The song," he murmured, unable to tear his gaze away from her. "You've heard it too?" The woman nodded. "I am Selina," she said, stepping closer, her eyes never leaving his. "I've been searching for the song for many years, but I've only ever caught glimpses of it in my dreams. And now, here you are, guided by the same melody." Aidan swallowed hard, his heart racing. "I don't understand," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "Why would it choose me?" Selina smiled faintly. "Perhaps the song doesn't choose us. Perhaps we choose it." Her words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Aidan didn't know what to make of her, but he felt a deep connection to her, something beyond the physical, something ancient and cosmic. She was like the stars themselves, mysterious and untouchable, yet somehow within reach. "You're not the first to seek the stars," Selina said, her voice quiet but steady. Many have tried. Few have succeeded. The journey is perilous, and the stars, they demand a price. Aiden frowned. What kind of price? Selina's gaze darkened. Sacrifice, she said simply. The stars do not give their wisdom freely. To awaken the star spirits, one must give up something dear to them, something that defines them. The stars ask for nothing less than everything. Aiden's stomach twisted. The weight of the lute on his back suddenly felt heavier, and he realized with a sinking feeling what that sacrifice might be. But what if I'm not willing to give it up? Selina's eyes softened, her voice gentle. Then you must turn back now, before it's too late. Aiden glanced up at the sky, where the stars twinkled above, cold and distant. The melody in his mind grew louder, more insistent. He clenched his fists, his resolve hardening. I can't turn back, he said firmly. I have to know. I have to find out what the stars are trying to tell me. Selina studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. Then let us continue. Together, they ventured deeper into the wilderness, following the pull of the stars. The days turned into weeks as they crossed vast plains and scaled treacherous mountains. Along the way, they faced countless trials, raging storms, vicious beasts, and the cold, unrelenting hunger that gnawed at their bellies. But through it all, the song remained, a constant companion that urged them onward. As they neared the starborn peaks, a place spoken of only in hushed whispers, Aiden felt the air grow colder, the wind biting at his skin. The peaks loomed ahead, jagged and foreboding, their tops disappearing into the clouds. It was said that the barrier between the mortal world and the cosmos was thin here, that the stars themselves could be felt in the air. Aiden and Selina climbed the treacherous path in silence, the weight of their journey hanging heavily between them. When they finally reached the summit, they stood before a vast celestial well, a shimmering pool of starlight that seemed to pulse with energy. Aiden could feel the song vibrating through his very bones now, more powerful than ever before. Selina stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. This is it, she said, her eyes wide with awe. The celestial well. The place where the stars touch the earth. Aiden felt his heart race as he approached the well, the song growing louder in his mind, almost deafening. He could feel the star spirit's presence all around him, watching, waiting. This was the moment he had been searching for, the moment when the stars would reveal their secrets, but as he gazed into the well, he saw something he hadn't expected. His reflection stared back at him, but it wasn't just his own face he saw. It was Astralis and Luminous, the two star spirits whose love and sacrifice had given birth to the Song of the Stars. Their eyes, filled with sorrow and wisdom, seemed to pierce through him. Aiden, a voice echoed in his mind, soft and melodic, yet filled with unimaginable power. The song is not just a gift. It is a test. To awaken us, you must give up the part of yourself that makes you whole. Only through sacrifice can you unlock the wisdom of the stars. Aiden's breath caught in his throat. He had known this moment was coming, but now that it was here, the reality of it hit him like a wave. His gift, his music, the very thing that had brought him this far, it was the price the stars demanded. Without it, he would be nothing. That he turned to Selina, his voice trembling. I don't know if I can do this. Selina's eyes were filled with understanding. No one can make this choice for you, Aiden, she said softly. But whatever you choose, know that the stars will always remember your journey. Aiden closed his eyes, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the weight of the lute on his back, the last tether to his old life. Slowly, he unslung the instrument and held it in his hands, feeling the worn wood beneath his fingers. His mother's face flashed in his mind, her smile warm and kind. This was all he had left of her, all he had left of himself, but the stars were calling. They had always been calling. With a deep breath, Aidan stepped forward and placed the lute at the edge of the well. The starlight seemed to reach out, wrapping around the instrument like tendrils of light. As the lute was swallowed by the light, Aidan felt a part of himself being pulled away, a hollow emptiness opening up inside him. The song in his mind grew louder, more beautiful, but it was no longer his to hear. The music was gone from him, but in its place, there was peace. The stars pulsed with a soft, gentle light, and Aidan knew that his sacrifice had been accepted. The wisdom of the stars was not something that could be written down or spoken aloud. It was something deeper, something that would live on in the hearts of those who sought it with pure intent. Selina stepped forward, her eyes bright with unshed tears. She placed a hand on Aidan's shoulder, her voice soft. "You did it," she whispered. "You've awakened them." Aidan nodded, though he felt an overwhelming sense of loss. He had given up the most precious part of himself, but in doing so, he had found something greater. He had found the truth of the stars. The star spirits shimmered above them, their forms barely visible against the night sky. And in that moment, Aidan understood. The song had never been about power or knowledge. It had been about love, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between the stars and those who sought their wisdom. As the stars began to fade, Aidan turned to Selina, a small smile on his lips. "Will you finish the song?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Selina nodded, her eyes shining with emotion. "I will. And your story will live on in the stars." The stars shimmered above, growing fainter with each passing moment, but their presence lingered, as if watching over Aidan and Selina. The quiet that settled around them wasn't just silence, it was the weight of something greater. The sacrifice had been made, and now, everything felt different. Aidan still felt the hollow emptiness where his music once lived, an aching void he wasn't sure would ever heal. But something else had filled that space, a sense of understanding, a quiet acceptance of his place in the vast expanse of the universe. Selina stepped beside him, her gaze fixed on the fading glow of the star spirits. She didn't speak, and Aidan was grateful for the silence. Words seemed unnecessary now, as if nothing could truly capture the weight of what had happened. The world had shifted, not in a grand, explosive way, but in the subtle rearrangement of how he saw everything around him. It wasn't knowledge in the traditional sense, but a deeper understanding of the balance between love, sacrifice, and the pursuit of wisdom. They stood there for what felt like hours, bathed in the gentle starlight, until finally, the sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn. Selina turned to him, her expression soft but resolute. "The journey isn't over," she said quietly. Aidan nodded, though a part of him felt like everything had already changed. "No," he agreed. "It isn't." They descended from the starborn peaks in silence, the once treacherous path now feeling almost familiar, as if the landscape itself had softened in the wake of the star spirit's awakening. The song no longer hummed in Aidan's mind, but he didn't need it anymore. It had done its work, guiding him to the truth, and now it was time to live in that truth, however painful it might be. Days passed as they traveled back through the wilderness, their steps slower, more deliberate. Aidan could feel the weight of everything he had lost pressing on him, but he didn't regret it. He knew the stars had asked for nothing less than what was necessary. And in their own way, they had given him something in return, an understanding of the universe that went beyond words, beyond music, beyond anything he could ever express. Selina remained by his side, a constant, quiet presence. She didn't speak much about what had happened, but Aidan could see the change in her as well. She had been searching for the stars for so long, and now, like him, she had found what she didn't even know she was seeking. One evening, as they sat by the fire under the open sky, Selina broke the silence. "What will you do now?" she asked, her voice low. Aidan stared into the flames, the crackle of burning wood filling the space between them. He hadn't thought much beyond the journey, beyond the moment of awakening. Now that it was over, the future felt like a vast, open road with no clear direction. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice soft. "I'm not sure what's left for me without the music." Selina's eyes softened. "You've gained something far more than what you lost, Aidan. The stars chose you for a reason. They don't take without giving." Aidan met her gaze, feeling the weight of her words. "But what can I do with it? I can't sing, can't play. The music was all I had." Selina shook her head gently. "You still have your voice. You have your story. And that's something no one can take from you." Her words settled over him like a warm blanket, and for the first time since his sacrifice, Aidan felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps she was right. The music had been a part of him, but it wasn't the only part. He still had his mind, his memories, and the wisdom he had gained from the journey. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The fire crackled softly as they sat in companionable silence, the stars twinkling faintly above them. Aidan closed his eyes, letting the peace of the moment wash over him. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid of it. The journey had changed him in ways he couldn't fully understand, but it had also shown him that life was about more than just the pursuit of power or knowledge. It was about love, about sacrifice, about finding your place in the universe and embracing it, no matter how small or insignificant it might seem. As the night deepened, Aidan found himself thinking of his mother, her laughter, the way her fingers danced across the strings of her lute. He missed her fiercely, but now, there was a sense of peace in that too. She had given him the love of music, the gift that had brought him to the stars. And in the end, that gift had led him to something far greater than he could have ever imagined. He smiled softly to himself, the pain of his loss easing just a little. The stars had taught him something he would carry with him for the rest of his life, a lesson in love, sacrifice, and the quiet, enduring strength that came from understanding your place in the universe. The next morning, they packed up their camp and continued their journey. The path ahead was long, but Aidan no longer feared what lay before him. He would find his way, as he always had, with or without the song. And perhaps, in time, he would learn to tell his story, not through music, but through words, through the quiet reflection of a life lived in the shadow of the stars. The days stretched into weeks, and before long, they found themselves back in Ardent, the small village unchanged by the passage of time. Aidan stood at the edge of the road, staring at the familiar sight of his home. It felt smaller now, somehow less important in the grand scheme of things, but it was still home. Selina turned to him, her expression soft. "Will you stay?" she asked. Aidan considered the question, his gaze lingering on the village that had shaped him. "For a while," he said, his voice steady. "But not forever." Selina nodded, understanding in her eyes. "The stars have more to show you, don't they?" Aidan smiled, a soft, bittersweet smile. "Yes. I think they do." And so, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Aidan stepped back into the village of Ardent. The people welcomed him with open arms, but Aidan knew he wasn't the same person who had left. The stars had changed him, had opened his eyes to the vastness of the universe and his place within it, but he also knew that his journey wasn't over. There was still so much to learn, so much to discover. The stars might have given him their wisdom, but they had also left him with more questions than answers. And that, he realized, was the beauty of it all. The journey never truly ended. There was always more to seek, more to understand, more to love, more to sacrifice. The stars had shown him that, and now it was up to him to carry that knowledge with him, wherever the road might lead. And as Aidan looked up at the sky that night, the stars twinkling faintly above him, he felt a deep sense of peace. The song might have left him, but the stars would always be there, guiding him, reminding him of the journey that had brought him to this moment. The stars had given him a gift greater than he had ever imagined, the gift of understanding. And that, he knew, was something he would carry with him for the rest of his life.